She dialed 911, yelling, "He's trespassing on HOA property." I stood at the rusty iron gate, deed clutched in my hand, while the crisp fall breeze blew over the broad, serene lake behind me, my lake now. But the woman in the purple outfit didn't care. Her name was Karen, and she strode across every inch of land her eyes fell upon. Standing behind her were three men who were dressed like officers, hands resting on their belts, imitation badges sparkling, behaving as if they were actual cops. Even their car was marked HOA enforcement on the side, like that would be a factor. "Ma'am," I said deliberately, trying not to laugh, "you're on federal waterway property. This lake has not been in your HOA for 20 years. Karen rolled her eyes, tossing her hair. "Don't be ridiculous. This lake belongs to our community. You can't just purchase it. Who do you think you are?" I stood up to her glare. "The new owner." Her face went blank for an instant. Then she snapped at her pretend officers. "Arrest him. We'll deal with this later." They didn't move but attempted to be tough, advancing. I didn't budge, although within my blood raged. They had no clue what kind of mess they were getting themselves into. Getting close, I raised the bright orange folder in my hand. "Before you grab me, perhaps read this first." Karen grabbed it, scanning as her wannabe cops looked over her shoulder. When her gaze finally hit the last page, a Department of the Interior stamped Federal Waterway Code permit, her face broke. "What is this?" She snapped. "That," I replied with a steady smile, "is your worst nightmare. You just tried to enforce HOA rules on federal land." One of her pretend cops edged nervously. "Ma'am, maybe we should quiet," she snapped. "Call 911. "Good idea," I replied, getting out my phone. "Let's call them together. I'd love to let the actual authorities handle this." The wind screamed through the trees, and for the first time, Karen seemed uncertain. She didn't know what she had gotten herself into, because this was not just any piece of land, and I was not just some guy who purchased a cabin on a lake. I had contacts she couldn't even dream of, and in no time, she'd regret ever approaching my gate. The distant wail of sirens drew nearer. Karen stood up straight, sneering. "You're done now. The genuine cops are here, and you'll be handcuffed for trespassing." I rested against the gate, steady and calm. "You might want to cease speaking before you deepen that hole." "Oh, please," she derided. "I've resided here 20 years. I know everyone. The sheriff's a close friend." I didn't respond, only observed as a genuine police cruiser drove up the gravel road. Two deputies exited, both having that serious, no-nonsense face. Karen hurried over to them, her arms flailing. "Officer, arrest the man. He's stealing our lake." The older deputy scowled. "Ma'am, sit down. Who is our—" She pointed a finger at me. "Him. He's constructing a fence and keeping our members out of the lake." The deputy confronted me. "Sir, that true?" I passed the same orange folder to him. "No, officer. What I'm blocking is illegal access to federal waterway property. This land falls under federal management, not HOA control." The younger deputy flipped through the pages and let out a low whistle. "He's not kidding, ma'am. This is signed by the Department of the Interior. Dated last month." Karen's confidence shattered. That can't be right. We've used this lake for years. Our dogs swim here." "Doesn't matter, ma'am," the deputy replied sternly. "If it's federal, HOA regulations don't count." There was silence. I crossed my arms, letting it weigh heavily. The imposter officers started making their way towards their car in an attempt to disappear, but the younger deputy caught on. "Hold up. What department are you guys with?" They stood still. One grumbled something about neighborhood security. The sun reflected off his badge, flimsy plastic. The tone of the deputy turned cold at once. "Those are counterfeit badges. Back away from the car." Karen's face went pale. "Wait, no, they're official." "Official by whom?" I said very softly. She stuttered. "By the HOA board." The deputy shook his head. "Ma'am, impersonating a cop is a felony. You'd best get to telling how your board hired them." Karen seemed about to pass out as the imitation cops were cuffed and parted. The situation reversed in a matter of seconds. I inhaled deep, observing sunlight ripples on the peaceful water. And that's when I understood this was just the start. because Karen had no idea that her HOA had been doing much worse than fake policing. And I had evidence to bring it crashing down. Karen's voice shook as she whispered on her phone, pacing back and forth, her world unraveling. The deputies went over to interrogate the impersonators next to their car, gathering bogus badges and counterfeit citations. The older deputy came over to me. "Sir, you mentioned that you recently bought this property?" "Yes," I nodded. "It was advertised as abandoned property. The last owner lost it in a flood. I purchased it outright through a federal land recovery program." Karen turned around frantically. "Impossible. This lake is owned by our HOA Recreation Trust." The deputy raised a hand. "Ma'am, there's no record of that. Nothing indicates HOA ownership." She stared at me. "You can just purchase our history, can't you? We constructed this place. We cleaned it, rented it out. I moved closer. Then perhaps you should have inquired who it belonged to before you put your playground on it." Her lips shook. "You're lying. Our president, Mr. Harland, has the papers. He'll sue you for fraud." That name did bring a smile. Mr. Harland, the same man who's been taking 10 years of lake maintenance fees on property that wasn't his? Her eyes opened wide. "What are you saying?" I took out my phone and displayed the screenshots, emails, maps, and waterway codes establishing federal ownership. Her fingers trembled. "How did you obtain them?" "I am with the Department of Federal Waterway Restoration," I explained softly. "This land is in my charge. All bogus fees, all misuse without permission, all accounted for." The older deputy blinked. "You're telling me you're federal staff?" "Consultant level," I said. "That's why I didn't respond when they attempted to arrest me. I want to test how far they would push it." Karen's knees almost buckled. "This can't be happening. We had no idea." The deputy's radio crackled. "Dispatch, confirm, Federal Waterway agent confirmed." ID cross-checked. Karen stood stock still. The impersonators she'd phoned for backup now found themselves cuffed. Her excuses had become a desperate and pitiful thing. I stood my ground, voice firm but frosty. "You phoned 911 to get me arrested for being on my own property, but you're the one trespassing on U.S. land." Her lower lip shook as she attempted to form words. I didn't mean save it," I interrupted brusquely. "You'll be needing that speech for your attorney." The younger deputy edged closer, speaking softly. "You want to file charges?" I looked beyond Karen out at the serene blue lake shining behind her. "Not yet," I said. "Not until the HOA president arrives. I want everyone included." Karen's eyes opened wide in shock. "You wouldn't dare." "Oh, I would," I said softly. "Because this is not about a lake anymore, Karen. It's about fraud. And I'm tired of watching people take advantage of power they never possessed." I pulled out my phone and placed a call that would reveal all her little HOA empire had been concealing. The line rang through immediately. "Agent Lewis, Federal Waterway Division," I declared. "Initiate verification protocol for Lakeshire property. We've got impersonation, suspected fraud, and illegal HOA enforcement on a restricted zone." Karen froze as those words hit her. The real deputies exchanged uneasy glances. They knew this just escalated far beyond a simple neighborhood dispute. Within minutes, a black SUV rolled up the dirt road, its federal plates gleaming under the afternoon sun. Karen took a step back. "Who are they?" I crossed my arms. "The individuals who do things when neighborhood power plays spill over into federal territory." Two grim-looking agents emerged, jackets labeled Federal Waterway Enforcement. A tall woman with measured authority came up to me first. "Agent Lewis," she said, nodding. "We got your warning." Karen's jaw fell. "Wait, he's an agent." The woman nodded at her. "Yes, ma'am. And you're standing in violation of Title 33, Section 9 of the U.S. Waterway Code, attempting to enforce private law over federal property." Karen stammered. I didn't know." Our HOA president said. "That's what they all say." The agent interrupted coldly. "But we've been monitoring your HOA's activities for months. Bogus citations, bogus enforcement letters, impersonation reports." She nodded in the direction of the bogus officers who sat quietly beside their vehicle. "And now, bogus police. Karen's legs gave way. It's all a misunderstanding. I'm moving close, my voice dropping. You dispatched fake cops to arrest me on my property, Karen. You never inquired. You simply assumed you had authority. Tears pricked at her eyes. I was informed the HOA owned the lake. I didn't intend to commit a crime. The agent shook her head. You should have checked prior to hiring dressed-up impersonators. On federal land. That is not an error. That is an offense. Deputies were taking statements as agents searched the imitation HOA truck. One of them produced a folder stamped violation notices, each page Harlan signed. Karen's face paled. He said it was all official. He claimed he had government authorization. I couldn't help a small smile. Guess you'll learn how official he is when the feds show up on his doorstep. Her voice broke. Please, you mustn't let them take me. I didn't do anything. I glanced at her once more. No, Karen, you simply didn't think. And your arrogance pulled innocent people into a federal offense. One of the agents spoke to me softly. We'll require your complete report, Agent Lewis. Headquarters has been awaiting this link. I nodded. You'll have it all tonight, including Harlan's offshore accounts and those lake maintenance payments. Karen inhaled sharply. Offshore accounts? What? Yeah, I replied softly. He wasn't keeping the lake. He was keeping his hidden life. The agents glared at each other. Good job, Lewis. This is more than we suspected. As they took Karen away for interrogation, the sun set on the water, serene, gold, and at last unfettered. But I knew it wasn't finished. If Harlan had forged HOA authority here, no one knew how many other communities he was controlling. Karen sat shaking in the back seat of a patrol car while the phony cops made their confessions. They'd been contracted by the HOA board to intimidate recalcitrant homeowners. It was over but not done. When the agents finished up, I asked, shall we drop Mr. Harlan a visit before sundown? The tall agent smirked. You read my mind. We rode out to the HOA office, a glass and arrogance building. Inside, Harlan was halfway through a presentation, proselytizing new access fees. At sight of us, his insincere smile failed. Agent Lewis, he said rigidly. What a surprise. Federal involvement in a local matter? Local. I raised a file. You've embezzled more than $200,000 of bogus lake fees for homes you never owned. His face set. There has to be a misunderstanding. The agent next to me slapped a warrant on the table. No misunderstanding, Mr. Harlan. We followed the payments to your offshore account. You've been ripping off your own residents. Gasps echoed through the room. Phones were pulled out. Cameras rolled. Harlan began sweating. Can't prove. Oh, we can. I cut him off. And who's taking the stand? His eyes went wide. She wouldn't. She already did. The agents closed in quickly. Homeowners applauded as the handcuffs clicked home. Justice wasn't silent. It was loud, public, and late in coming. Karen stood in the corner, guilt etched on her face. I'm sorry, she whispered. I really thought we were helping the community. I locked eyes with her. You can't defend what you don't respect. That night, I stood by the lake. The gates were missing. The signs removed. The water glinted gold in the waning sun. I set a new marker alongside the dock, Federal Waterway Protected Zone. No one would ever steal this land again. My phone vibrated. A message popped up, case closed. Well done, Agent Lewis. I gazed out over the peaceful lake and smiled. Some people believe that owning land makes them powerful, but ultimately, truth owns them every time. I turned off my phone, inhaled the mountain breeze, and whispered, freedom is not something you purchase, it's something you defend. I then locked the gate behind me. Neighbor Wars HQ outro. If you like this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below. Would you stand your ground against an HOA like this? Your thoughts might just inspire the next Neighbor Wars HQ episode.